Welcome to the Holy Smokes Podcast, a show about faith, friendship, fine tobacco, and drink. I'm Steve Reiter, and I am not in the Lion's Den as I normally am. I am in Ucluelet, British Columbia, or as the locals call it, Ucluelet, or Yuki. And so I just got done with 3 awesome dudes salmon fishing, and I've got one of them on today, Sam Vandervalk. Welcome to the Holy Smokes Podcast.
Good to be here, Steve, and thanks for having me on. It's good to have you out on the boat, and it's been a long time coming to have you up in Ucluelet. We've talked about this many times over the past at least
20 years.
20 years, yeah.
Yeah. So for listeners, Sam was my roommate. Or actually, Sam's brother was my roommate for the first, most of the first 3.5 years that I was in Colorado Springs before I got married. And Sam would come out, and then Sam lived with us for a while. And so Sam was my roommate for a while. And it's so freaking cool to see where you guys grew up. And it's a freaking beautiful country. This is a beautiful country.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's spectacular. I think when you grow up here, you don't always realize how beautiful it is. And I think a lot of kids really just grow up here and, think about their peers and how to fit in and all that kind of stuff and don't think as much about what's surrounding them. So one of the things I wanted to do as a side note was just create something for kids to figure out, what was around them. So I did that through one of the websites I did. Actually, I don't think I told you about that. But.
You've got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and we'll get to that. But first question I always ask is, what you smoking? And I handed you an Oliva Serie V. What are your first impressions?
It's great. I think it's, like a medium cigar, if I'm not mistaken there. And I'm not an experienced cigar smoker, so I do enjoy one every once in a while. But it's nice to be smoking a cigar with you.
Oh, and last night we were, the 4 of us, over at your place just up the hill, and some amazing conversation, almost past midnight. And it was just some really deep questions and conversations. And
yes.
Yeah,
I think it's something that, having 4 guys all smoking a cigar and talking about things that most people don't talk about a little bit deeper, going into how the world works and how life works is always something that, is memorable. And you think about those conversations well past the days you spend together.
So where'd you grow up on the island?
So I grew up on the east side of Vancouver Island in a little town called Qualicum. I went to high school there and started my fishing charter there, and then very quickly moved out to Yuki because it was just much more abundant waters for fishing.
So Yuki, for those that don't know, it's on the Pacific coast side of the island. About a third of the way north on the island?
Yeah, it's something like that.
About a third of the way, halfway, something like that, up the island.
Yeah.
And a good, probably 3 hours from Victoria?
By road, it's about 5 hours from Victoria.
Okay, 3 hours from Nanaimo, where we flew in, and about 5 hours up from Victoria.
Yeah. And for all those people that don't know, Victoria is sort of the crown jewel of Canada. It's got about 500,000 in population. And,
is it that big? I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah.
This is about Colorado Springs size.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very busy little city, and it's got rush hour like a lot of cities, so you can be stuck in traffic for half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of family did you grow up with?
Well, I had 4 brothers and 1 sister, and
you are number what in the order?
I was number 5.
Number 5.
Yeah. We were homeschooled mostly, but then at the very end we went to high school. And one of the things we used to do as kids for fun was go fishing. So that's something that I started very early on. And my brother Ray and I would go fishing when I was 12 and he was 16. We got a boat, learned how to fish, and would ask all the locals exactly all the tips and tricks as far as what to do. And within our first year of buying the boat, we were out fishing all the locals. Just because we were kids, lots of other people didn't want to ask what to use, but we would ask a million questions. And
Really?
they didn't mind telling kids,
Yeah.
So it was quite fun.
That's
And
awesome.
then we got tired of salmon because my mom didn't know how to cook salmon.
Really?
And we brought so much salmon home.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we just had a salmon meal today, fresh caught. I mean, today we cooked it up and it was outstanding with zucchini and asparagus and some shiitake mushrooms. And Jeff, who's with us, decided, let's grill some peaches. And oh my God, it was a fantastic meal.
Spectacular. Yes.
It was a great meal. Just the four of us hanging out and drinking some fine wine and talking and yeah.
So, Steve, I've got a question for you, seeing as how
That's quick. That's quick. You're turning it over to me.
Yes.
You're switching the tables.
Yes. Seeing as how this is your first time up to this region in Canada, what do you think of this region? How does it impact you coming from a place like Colorado Springs, which has lots of nature?
Yeah.
So what's your impression of being here and seeing the nature and trails?
In my opinion, I've always said, if I could have a place with ocean and mountains, so I could get some really good hiking in and then be at the beach, that's like a dream for me. And my God, I'm like here and I'm like, I want to come back here and spend way more time because, I mean, there was a trail. It was about a 4.5 mile round trip with 2,200 foot elevation gain just outside of Yuki.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my, I want to do that. I want to hike that and then spend the rest of the day at the beach, just relaxing and chilling out. And then apparently you told me that Vancouver Island has the best surfing in all of Canada and some of the best in the West Coast.
Yes, it does. Yeah, so Ukielen and Tofino are known to be, the hot spot for surfing. And it's sort of like the California of Canada, where people come and bring their surfboards. And, a lot of people have surfboards on their cars. And then some other people live closer to the beaches and they, just bike down to the beach and surf. And it's sort of a year-round thing, but definitely August is not the prime time for surf, but the rest of the year is very good surf.
Yeah, I remember you telling us on the way out, you're like, bring some Dramamine just in case.
Yeah.
And it was like, you said it's the calmest waters.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, incredible.
So I guess the next question I have for you is being out on the boat for the first time and reeling in a salmon, which is, a fairly large fish to reel in.
Yeah.
And quite powerful. What was your, reaction as far as adrenaline and, I give a lot of instructions, but when someone gets a fish on the line, a lot of that just sort of goes out the window. So can you give me some feedback as far as what your thoughts were when you got your first fish on the end of the line?
It was the most fun fishing I've ever done in my life. It really was. And especially today when you moved us over to the single action reels, because I got to toy with the fish and let it go when it needed to go and then start to bring it in when it was kind of turned up my way. I could feel it like it was swimming towards us, reel it in real fast and then kind of let off a little bit. And that was so enjoyable. I'm like, I could spend a whole summer doing that every day.
Oh, yeah. Well, I must say you guys all did a very good job. They're all sitting here, so everyone did a great job switching over to the single action reels. And I think sometimes it's good to have the experience on one reel first and then switch over so that
what was the first reel that you did? And kind of explain for the listener the differences between those two reels.
Well, the first reel I had was a level line without the guide that puts the line back and forth on the reel, and it's basically a two-way action reel so that you can keep reeling and the fish can go out if necessary.
Yeah.
So it's a good starter reel as far as, having people get the feel of having a salmon on the end of the line.
Yeah.
Seeing the salmon come up to the boat, have the experience of the salmon around the boat. And when the salmon's around the boat, there's a lot of things going on. The salmon can, thrash around, can go under the boat, can go in the motors, or there's all sorts of things. So it's just a good thing to have a little bit easier to start off with. And then, today you guys switched over and had a new experience.
We lost a lot less fish today.
Yeah.
Than we did yesterday.
Yeah. And some of that can just be, the day. Like sometimes the fish are more active.
Yeah.
And they, sometimes you don't lose very many fish at all. And sometimes it's just, it could be the lure. Like sometimes the lure, for whatever reason, is catching fish a certain way.
And so you have a company, Salmon Fishing Charters,
Yep.
and you got the biggest freaking sign at the dock. And yours is the first one that someone Googles salmon fishing in Vancouver Island comes up on Google.
Yeah, I don't think we're number one anymore, but I'm planning to get back there as far as Google goes. As far as being the biggest outfit in town, yes, we are, but I like to think that we offer the best experience as far as people coming out, feeling like the guide really makes the experience a whole lot of fun for them. And so the guides don't yell at you. The guides will coach you through exactly how to get the fish in the boat, and then also tell you stories and a lot, to make the whole experience something that you could do for the whole family, and it's not just a hardcore fisherman kind of thing,
Oh, yeah.
But many hardcore fishermen come out here.
Yeah, you've told me about the quote-unquote celebrities that you've had come out on your boat, like, some former NHL hockey players, maybe even current NHL players, and even like some of the Seattle Seahawks front office, you told me one time.
Yeah, so, yeah, we I guess because we get more people coming through, then word of mouth gets around, and then people find out from their friends how great it is. And so, yes, I think that's one of the favorite parts for me is getting word of mouth and seeing people really enjoy themselves so much that they tell their friends about it.
Very cool. And so let's get back to you. I'm going to turn the tables back and start asking you questions again. So after high school, what'd you do?
After high school, I had 3 jobs. I guided for part-time. I worked with my dad roofing.
Yeah.
And I also worked as a produce clerk in a grocery store. So I worked about 70 hours a week. Yeah.
And then, so I think it was probably 98 is when I first met you, because I moved to Colorado in 97. It was either 98 or maybe even early 99 that I met you, because I moved in with John right after the Super Bowl in 98, after my Packers lost to the Broncos, and I was in a house full of Bronco fans and learned to really hate the Broncos. Yeah, because I remember John was one of the few people there at the house that was cheering for the Packers, and he and I just instantly hit it off. And his roommate Linford had left, and so a room was open at his apartment. And I was like, I need a place. Let's do this. And absolutely love your brother. But then I met you, and dude, I feel like we hit it off right away, and I just love hanging out with you whenever you come into town. Yeah, and we hang out and talk, and you sometimes bring me salmon, and that's good stuff.
Anybody will talk to me if I bring them salmon.
So, what were you doing during those years that I first got to meet you, from like 98 until when you started Salmon in 2002, right?
Yeah, so at that point, I was guiding as well during the summers, and then I was doing schooling during the winters, essentially.
What were you going to school for?
I did a few different things. So I did hospitality management. I think I remember that. I did a mechanics internship. Yeah. And decided I just wanted to do that for a year and see what it was like, but didn't end up going down that route. I didn't think I was going to go down that route, but just thought I would do it for fun, sort of thing. Your
little brother ended up going that direction.
Yes, he did. And then I went to school to be a financial planner and did a 4-year bachelor degree. My first summer back from university, I started my salmon fishing business. And by the time that I was done university, I had 3 boats going. And I kind of figured, you know what, this is probably going to make me as much money as being a first-year financial planner. Because you start low as a financial planner, you get like the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. So I thought, you know what, this would give me a little more freedom in my winters. And so I started going down that route and worked really hard in the business. Businesses don't just start themselves, as every business person can attest to. And I worked at becoming number 1 in Google for just about every keyword possible, and to do with sport fishing and salmon fishing and halibut fishing. And by 2005, I was number 1 in Google for just about every keyword you could type in. At that point, Google was just starting to do the monetization, and so they were unlike some of the Ask Jeeves and other search engines in the fact that they didn't do as many sponsored ads at the top. And so it made it much more profitable, I guess, to have, your top ranking, whereas now it's a little bit less profitable because the first 4 links that they have there are sponsored ads.
Yeah.
But I became number 1 in just about every keyword, including salmon fishing in North America. I was number 1 for that keyword.
Really?
And Google ended up dropping me for that keyword completely out of the search engine, like a manual drop.
What?
Because I was had so many keywords, I believe.
How did that affect your business when that happened?
It didn't really.
Yeah.
It didn't really. But then I worked around it. I created other websites for getting that keyword back, and then I also got listings on websites that had, high rankings for that keyword.
So some of those other websites that you've created one for like Victoria and Vancouver Island, right?
Yes. So I ended up doing like area guides. So like a locals guide for Tofino, Ucluelet, Victoria, and then one for all of Vancouver Island. The one for all of Vancouver Island's more focused on hiking and kayaking and sort of like the nature side of things.
How big is Vancouver Island in terms of landmass? Like, is there a state that's comparable?
I tell people Vancouver Island's about the size of Switzerland. So I actually don't know what the size of Switzerland is, so I'd have to check that out. But it's quite a large island. To drive from one end to the other is about 7 hours, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and that's going fairly quick.
Yeah.
The island's very narrow.
Yeah.
So it's very mountainous, and in the middle, is very mountainous, and that's why it takes 5 hours or about 4.5 hours to get from Victoria to Ucluelet, because you have to drive up the east side and then you have to sort of snake through the mountains to get over to the west coast.
Yeah. So talk about the business. Salmon Fishing Charters, right? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
And like, how has it grown? What's your passion around it? What do you want to do?
Well, I think in any hospitality business, your passion has to be people. And you obviously, do something else because you like also what you're doing that's outside of people. So I'm very passionate about fishing. But at the end of the day, taking people out and making the experience something very memorable for them is definitely very rewarding. And I've made some very good connections from it, very good friends. One of my friends who comes fishing now, and I call him a friend because they've been fishing with me quite a few times, but he brought his dad and his mom out fishing, and it was right at the end of, their lives. And they both said at the funerals for each one that it was the favorite experience they'd ever had. So it's pretty, rewarding when you hear something like that.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you right now from being out with you these last 3 days, and I think the other 2 guests that are here that came with me, Dr. Howard Cohn from Southern California and Jeff Hash from Sacramento, they, I think, would also attest that you're a good coach, and you're really good at teaching us and kind of talking us through things, and as we're bringing in the fish and what happened, why did we lose this one, or what could we do a little bit differently? Yeah, and then also in meeting one of your other guides, Tyler, the guy just exudes energy and happiness and excitement.
Yes, he does. Being out on the boat, I think the more you are out there, the more you get a little bit more relaxed. So I think when I first started guiding, I didn't give as much instruction, and I more cared about getting that fish on the line.
Yeah.
But as you go on in your guiding career, you realize that you need to be a little bit less focused on getting that fish and a little more focused on the customer experience and making sure that the customers are having a really good time on the rod, and really the whole time in the boat, and making sure that they're engaged in a way that, that they're absolutely having the best time possible.
Yeah. So what kinds of fish are available to catch here on Vancouver Island?
Well, similar to Alaska, we have Chinook salmon, coho salmon, sockeye salmon. We don't have sockeye salmon in this area, but there's an area very close where you can get sockeye salmon. we have halibut and lingcod. This area is very unique in that where we run in our boats to go get the fish is very close to the harbor. So almost every other spot along the whole coast, from Vancouver Island up to Alaska, you've got to travel much longer distance to get to the fish, where here we just generally go a very short distance to the fish.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And fishing conditions change, so it's not like the fish are always very close to shore, but the fish are often very close to shore here. And it's also just a little bit different, you know, to let you know, like, so there's lodges all the way along the coast. This is a town that's, you know, got a harbor with a bunch of boats and a bunch of people out fishing, but it's a fairly large area. So that whatever area you're fishing, you don't have a million boats around you generally. So I think it's quite special. Like if you go to a fly-in fishing lodge somewhere, or even if you go up to Alaska, if you go to Homer, or if you go to Sitka, or if you go to, you know, one of the other spots, can be a fair amount of boats around. So you think you're coming into this remote place, but when you get out on the water, it's not that remote. You know, when I say it's not that remote, you've got all these other boats around, and you're like, well, I just came to be in the middle of nowhere with no one around. But
yeah,
it's quite a special place here.
Yeah. Today there wasn't that many boats on the water. I mean, obviously Saturday and Sunday there were more boats, but today we didn't have to worry about traffic nearly as much.
No, it's really quite a special place.
So most listeners are probably familiar with halibut, and everyone is likely familiar with salmon. But lingcod, that was one you started talking about last night when we were sitting around having cigars. I think it was Howard asked you, what was your favorite fish to eat? And you said lingcod over,
actually,
not necessarily over salmon, but you like lingcod.
I definitely like lingcod. So my favorite to eat by far is salmon and Chinook salmon.
Yeah.
So there's...
Which we call in the States king salmon.
King salmon, that's correct, yeah. And there's a few different types of salmon. So I grew up thinking sockeye and coho were the best eating salmon.
Yeah.
And they definitely have very good flavor, but Chinook salmon has a slightly oilier content. And
which is
it's more
great
versatile.
For you health-wise.
It's very good for you health-wise, has more omegas in it. And it also is more versatile for cooking. So you can cook it on the barbecue, you can cook it in the oven, you can cook it or pan fry it on the stove, which is the way we had it tonight.
Yeah.
And it's, in my opinion, just, you know, the best salmon, but all salmon really is good. It's all organic. It's a cold water fish. You don't have to worry about mercury or anything like that, you know, like with other types of pelagic fish.
The thing that I was really struck with as you were filleting up the salmon at the end of each day was how rich, how red, and how rich the salmon looked versus the farm-bought salmon you can get at Costco or the grocery store.
Yeah, the farm salmon is something that anybody who eats wild salmon will turn their nose up at because, first of all, it's not good for you, in my opinion. It's given all these, you know, feed that's not natural to it during its life. It swims around in a pen and gets very, very fat, partially because of the feed, but partially because it's very inactive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything good for the environment around it. That's a whole another topic in itself. But when you get a wild salmon...
What do you mean do anything good for the environment around it?
Well, if it's in a pen, then basically all the excrements from the salmon go down into one area, and it would be like having a farm and all your cows are just under one roof, and you know, all the cow excrements go in one trough, and you can smell it for miles. Well, that's sort of the same thing for salmon on the bottom of the ocean. So it's basically, you know, becomes toxic for the
for the fish
environment around it. Well, just for the bottom. So like nothing can live on the bottom around those pens.
Really?
Yeah, and then sea lice is also a big factor as well.
Sea lice?
Sea lice, yeah. So there's sea lice on all salmon, but especially in the farmed salmon, sea lice grows in large amounts or much larger amounts, and can be an issue for young salmon if there's young salmon in the area going out. So there's a fair amount of studies on that as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. And then lingcod. Talk about that, because I'd never heard of a lingcod.
So
And
lingcod,
it was good. And it was good. We caught one today.
yeah,
We caught a few, but one that we were able to take in, and we filleted that up and cooked it before dinner, and it was buttery good. It was so tasty.
yes, it really does melt in your mouth if you get a young lingcod. So lingcod, in my opinion, are better than halibut, and it's tough for people to probably stomach that because halibut's very well marketed.
Yeah. Well, halibut's also easier to catch, right? Or not?
Not really.
Okay.
No, you have to go further out for halibut.
Yeah.
You don't have to go as far for lingcod. There's times of the year where there's tons and tons of lingcod here. So, May, June, early July, there's a lot more lingcod around. And then starting in about 2 weeks, there'll be a lot of lingcod around again.
Are they migrating somewhere?
No, they come in to spawn.
Oh, okay.
So they come closer to the rocks to spawn. So they'll come in from further out in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think most people that have had lingcod, definitely enjoy it. And there's a place called Taco Fino, which became famous up in Tofino for its lingcod tacos. And people will line up for, 20 people, 30 people, at this little bus to get their taco.
Really?
And yeah, some people will wait an hour to get their lingcod taco.
Dang. Next time I'm out here, I'm going to have to go up there
Yeah.
and try that out.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't have that much time yesterday, so we went to the Wick instead.
Which was an excellent restaurant and resort.
Yeah,
At a resort.
Yeah.
So how many boats you got going on, and how many guides, and when's your season for salmon fishing and taking people out?
I run generally around 5 boats, and the normal season is somewhere between June 1st and September 15th.
When's the best time for people to reserve if they're looking at next year?
The prime time for the season is July and August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're here the last weekend in August, and it was good fishing. I mean,
yeah,
we were done. We had our limit within 4 hours, pretty much every day.
Yes, the fishing here is pretty phenomenal right now, and August is sort of the time where the biggest fish come in, and it's the time where if you're a guide or a fisherman, it's really not comparable to that many other experiences, in my opinion. Like I fish sailfish, marlin, a bunch of other types of fish, and for me, like Chinook salmon is just the most fun. And part of it is the fact that you can eat it at the end. Like when it comes into the boat, you're like, oh, you see a beautiful fish on the bottom of the boat, and also or in the cooler, and then you get to enjoy it at the end of the day, or for your winter.
Yeah, we're going back, each of us with 4 Chinook, and which is our limit that we can take back into the States. But each day, I mean, we pretty much hit our limit, and 20 pounds around. What do you think was the biggest fish that we got? Yeah,
around 20 pounds. I think most of the fish were in the 15 to 20 pound range.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a good size fish.
Yeah, it is. Very good size. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a real heart for doing something more with your business.
Yes, I liked to be able to give back and have people come out and experience something that they wouldn't necessarily experience, and also be able to have people come out, create relationships they wouldn't necessarily be able to create, or at least build relationships further that they haven't necessarily built as much, and make it go towards something that I guess gives back to the rest of the world.
Yeah. And that's kind of the reason that you called me up in late April and said, hey, I've got a spot for you. I want you out here. Bring some guys.
Yes. So this is something I guess that I wouldn't do for a lot of people, but I've known you for a really long time, and I know what you've done for the Never Alone project, and also, for supporting other causes. And so that's something that was quite meaningful. And I know that, you know, what you went through with your wife was something that not a lot of people could describe or, you know, have feelings about. Like, I just can't imagine the things that you went through. And so I guess to be able to, you know, reward you and also like do something where we build on ideas and solutions to try and come up with ways that, you know, the world can become a better place is very powerful.
Well, and those kinds of conversations were happening around a little bit on the boat, but mainly at lunch or dinner whenever we would go out together, the four of us. And there was some really, really good conversations with these guys.
Yeah. Yes, you brought some classy people with you.
Well, I don't know about Howard. I wouldn't use classy for Howard. Who, Dr. Howard Cohn, will be on the podcast. I'm going to get him when I'm out in California next over a cigar. What's the name of that club that you're a member of, Howie?
Hot Rods and Handguns.
Hot Rods and Handguns. And where in Orange County is that? Is it Irvine?
Beach, California.
Newport?
Huntington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool ass little club with restaurants and.
We're gonna have to get Sam up there too, Jeff.
Yeah.
Guns. Pool with cards, everything. Smoke cigars.
So Sam Vandervalk, let's get to rapid fire questions. Hey everyone, I wanted to announce that we have Holy Smokes gear. That's right, we have swag. We currently have hats, shirts, stickers like for your vehicle or your travel humidor, magnets, even branded bourbon glasses for a limited time. Go to holysmokes.club and click on the shop tab. That's holysmokes.club. I'm super proud of the shirts. They're made with Bella Canvas shirts that are soft and incredibly comfortable. The hats fit wonderfully, which can be a problem for those of us with big noggins. We plan on having a lot more to offer, like Guayabera shirts, additional t-shirt designs, beanies, polos, hoodies, cigar accessories, and much more. Check it out. And even if you don't make a purchase now, be sure to sign up for that email list, as I've thrown a couple big discount coupon codes for those exclusively on that list. So click the shop tab at holysmokes.club. Thanks.
Rapid fire. Fire. Here.
How's that stick treating you?
Great.
When did you first try cigars?
Maybe when I was 20.
What was the situation around that?
I was guiding up north, and this client brought a Romeo and Julieta, and I smoked it with him in the boat, and it was great. It was, I don't know, I just loved it.
You ever tried pipe?
No.
Do you have a favorite cigar that you've had thus far?
I don't know. I guess, like, if it's a medium cigar, then I pretty much am going to enjoy it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as it's moist, which, you know.
Yeah, as long as it's well taken care of.
Yeah, exactly.
You ever buy cigars for yourself?
Only when I was in Vinales, I bought a few cigars.
Yeah.
I mean, they sell them for $1. They're actually pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, well, they make them right there.
Yeah. Most interesting person you've ever met through cigars?
The most interesting person I've met through cigars would be, I really haven't met that many people through cigars, to be honest with you, so that's a pretty tough question.
Okay. Favorite liquid pairing with your smoke?
Definitely the Scotch last night was a good pairing for me.
And it was?
It was the, what is that?
Macallan.
The Macallan, yeah. The
12 year.
12, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Do you have a favorite cigar memory? Most memorable cigar experience?
I guess I'd have to go back to that Romeo and Julieta that I smoked on the boat, because we smoked Romeo and Julieta and then we caught some really big fish afterwards.
Maybe it's good luck. Maybe it's good luck. I found a couple good luck charms. Like the first day, whenever I would take a bite out of a banana, something would bite.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
The second day, when I grab a couple potato chips and throw them in my mouth, someone would bite. And then today, we had a dry spell, and I put on "Pirate Looks at 40" by Jimmy Buffett, and then the Jack Johnson cover, and had it on my earbud. And sure enough, boom, we were hitting. Did you have a favorite superhero growing up when you were a kid?
You know,
You into that kind of stuff?
I wasn't, because we didn't have a TV until I was like 15 or 14, something like that.
Yeah.
And I started watching hockey. That was we were allowed to watch.
You're a hockey guy. Who's your team?
My team used to be Boston, but now I've switched over. Finally, after 20 plus years of, well, actually more than that, probably 30 years almost of cheering for Boston, I decided that I'm cheering for Florida now.
What and why? Because people are going to look and be like, "Oh, they just won the cup." For those that are hockey fans,
They came close.
oh, they came
Yeah,
close.
Vegas-
They didn't win. I thought they did.
No, they didn't win.
Oh, it's Vegas.
Vegas won, yeah.
Yeah.
I just started spending my winters in Florida, so in Jacksonville, and but while I was down in Florida, I did go to some Panther games
Yeah.
and loved the stadium, and then started liking the players, and it's just seems to be like a great team, a great coach team, and definitely like Matthew Tkachuk.
Are you into any other sports?
I play beach volleyball,
Yeah.
so I do that, and then I also kite surf, and yeah, I guess those would be my top three. I play a little bit of golf, but not a lot.
Any American sports that you follow, like baseball or
No.
football?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite athlete when you were a kid?
Cam Neely.
Cam Neely.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was from about half an hour away from where I grew up.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now he's president of the Boston Bruins, which is one reason I also like the team. But
Hall of Fame defenseman.
Hall of Fame forward
Forward? Oh,
Yes.
okay. I thought he was a defenseman. I think I'm confusing him with Chelios.
with Ray Bourque. Maybe you thought.
Ray Bourque. Yeah.
Ray Bourque was Hall of Fame defenseman.
Yeah. And did Cam play his whole career in Boston?
No, he started in Vancouver.
Okay.
And then was traded to Boston, and immediately after going to Boston, all of a sudden he became this power forward, and it was almost like he became a different player.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess he took on a new persona, joining the big bad Bruins.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite athlete right now? Favorite hockey player?
Favorite hockey player would probably be, I'm going to say Leon Draisaitl in Edmonton.
Tell me about him. What do you like about him?
Leon Draisaitl isn't just a good player in the regular season. In the playoffs, he's a very, like a power forward, and especially this past playoffs, he was dominating until Pietrangelo went in to hack him down, and something happened to him after that moment when he got hacked down by, or at least threatened to hack down by Pietrangelo, and I don't know what happened to his game, but before that he was just dominating. It was insane.
What kind of music do you love? What bands?
Well, I grew up listening to the Tragically Hip, which is a Canadian band and very popular in Canada, but people in the US don't know them very well. I guess U2 is one of my favorites, and it's a classic. I still listen to them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We were listening to them, both bands, last night while we were having cigars talking.
Yeah.
And like when you put U2 on, just the whole energy around the conversation really seemed to shift.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite food besides salmon?
Salmon cakes.
That's a tough question because I eat salmon so much, actually.
Yeah.
I guess I'm starting to eat beef more. So I'm starting to like steak more than I have in the past. So I guess right now I'll go with steak.
I think I know the answer to this one. Dogs, cats, neither, or both?
I would say that I like dogs, but I wouldn't want to own a dog because they're a lot of work. But growing up,
And you travel so much.
Yes, I travel so much.
I mean, between guiding and then when you're during the off season, used to be in San Diego, but you'd still travel a lot. Now you're in Florida.
Yes, exactly.
You still travel a ton.
It would be very tough for me to have a dog and take care of it, like I said. But yeah, I guess I don't get as attached to dogs as much as a lot of people do.
Not like Howie. every dog that we walk by, look at you, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Which I loved. Oh my God. Nickname. Do you have a nickname growing up or in college?
I guess after high school, this guy that I worked with called me Sammy the Bull Gravano.
Sammy the Bull. You a reader?
No, but I try to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have any books that you think were impactful?
I guess one book that I'm reading right now is Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson.
Name 3 things that you are thankful for at this time in your life.
I am thankful for health, number one, because you can't replace health. And I've had injuries in the past from sports. And when I've been injured, it's made me that much more thankful for health and that much more wanting to protect my health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in shape.
I try to be in shape, yeah.
Yeah. What are the other 2?
I guess the other top one would be relationships with friends. And that's another thing that every person needs and you can't live without. And it's something I guess that the Holy Smokes Club is all about is friendships. Mm-hmm. So that has to be number 2. And
next time you're down, I'll get you over to one of our local spots and get some people together.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I guess number 3 would be the fact that I had parents that stayed together.
I never got a chance to meet your dad.
Yeah. My dad was, a caring man. Every person that he met, people felt like he cared for them.
The way you and your brother always talked about him. You just seemed like a really special dude.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
If you could live anywhere, where would that be?
Holland.
Holland, really?
Yeah.
Why?
If only they had hockey there.
Howie, who also plays hockey, pickup hockey, is kind of laughing at that.
Holland is, I think, just a place with a lot of history. At one point, the Dutch ruled the world, and there's a lot of really innovative people there and sort of forward-thinking people there. I think Holland's changed a bit in the last little while, but it just seems that, the culture there is very welcoming and the conversations generally are very good. And it seems like most people you meet in the cities there just tend to be, fairly well educated people and knowledgeable about the rest of the world.
What's your greatest strength and what's your greatest weakness?
My greatest strength is positive thinking, and my greatest weakness is positive thinking.
Describe that. Talk about that.
So, positive thinking is great as far as starting a business or, coming up with ideas about all the things you're going to do. But if you don't really figure out exactly how much time everything is going to take and talk to people that have had experience in whatever you're wanting to go into, then your positive thinking can, end up turning into stress.
Yeah. Who's been the greatest influence in your life?
The person who was the greatest influence in my life at one point was actually Ted Haggard. And so when I was in Colorado Springs going to the church, it was a point in my life where I really didn't have much direction. And
I remember that.
And so that was very formative in finding direction and finding purpose in my life. So I guess if anybody knows who he is, he
obviously, what happened with him,
Yeah, but, at that point in my life, that was what I needed.
It was electric in Colorado Springs at New Life.
Yeah.
It was absolutely electric. I mean, I remember you when you were in Redding calling me saying, hey, what's going on here in Redding? This totally feels like like what Colorado Springs was when we were there.
Yeah, for sure.
Who's the first person you think of when you hear the word successful?
I guess right now I've been bombarded with Darren Hardy's stuff. So because he created Success Magazine, and I've been a part of his building workshops, that would be someone I think of as successful.
Who's Darren Hardy? Just for the listeners.
Sure. Darren Hardy is someone who wrote a book, or wrote a few books, like the Entrepreneurial Roller Coaster, and is the latest book I think he wrote. And then he was someone who was mentored by Jim Rohn and has created quite a few different businesses, had Success Magazine, and made that into a multi-million-dollar business. Mm-hmm. And then he's, I guess, got a success mentorship, in a way. I don't really know how to describe it, actually, but he's someone who influences a lot of more new entrepreneurs, I would say. So he's not someone who takes your business from 100 million to 500 million necessarily, but someone who will help you get to that 100 million.
What do you do for self-care, to rest, to recharge?
Well, during the summers for fishing, I try and do at least 10 minutes of stretches, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm very busy in the summertime, so that's often what I do. But during the wintertime, I try and spend more time in the morning doing some meditation and stretches and trying to focus on goals and things that I'm looking forward to growing in my life. And I think that that's probably the thing that I like the most. Like if I go on a retreat or go spend on a weekend somewhere with downtime, I like that, but I think I like more like the daily routine of just focusing before the day starts.
What's one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? Could be an investment of money, time, energy.
I guess starting my business really is the best investment I've ever made, because the business has been very good to me and allowed me to live a lifestyle that most people don't get to live.
What are bad recommendations you hear in your profession or area of expertise?
I'd say the number one that I hear, especially around here, is just build a website. So obviously it's good to build a website, but there's a lot more to it than that.
When you feel overwhelmed or you've lost your focus, what do you do?
I would say that if I feel overwhelmed, I would call someone, and then talking to someone for 15 minutes or 20 minutes generally helps me refocus. So it could be like my brother Ray or someone else who's done something that's similar capacity to what I'm, doing or having struggles with. And
Ray's been pretty successful with what he's done in the coffee business in the Portland area.
Yes, he has, yeah.
Talk about that a little bit for the listeners. If anyone's in the Portland area, they can support your brother.
Sure. So he is about half an hour north of Portland in the Kelso area, and he has a coffee company called Red Leaf, which does organic coffee, and it's mostly drive-through. And he's a very fast-growing business, so I think he started his company about 11 years ago, and I think he's got about 9 locations now, and I think he's growing very quickly and franchising and all that stuff. But I think he's focused on 10xing his business and making it so that right from the customer, like the customer experience and the employee experience is all something that is talked about through the community. And so I think that's something every business should strive towards.
How do you want to be remembered?
Well, that's a good question. I think I would like to be remembered as someone who cared for the people that I took care of in business and also in friendships.
Last 2 questions. If you could have a holy smoke with any 3 people throughout history, living or deceased, who would they be? Can't name Jesus.
So I think that would be Tony Robbins.
Why?
Tony Robbins was someone who created a business that hadn't seen a lot of traction. He didn't have a lot of people that went before him and showed him the path. And so he was really a pioneer in a way in the business that he created. And his stories are quite phenomenal about how he went about working through all of his challenges that he went through, like having stadiums shut down, or I think at one point he wasn't allowed to get across the Canadian border for one of his big events, and it could have bankrupted him. And so he's just used his life to influence a lot of people for good, in my opinion. And so that would be why I would like to talk to him. And then also he's, a genius at helping people thrive. It's really the short way of saying that, I think. Yeah.
The other 2.
Another one would be Jim Rohn, and I think he's been a mentor to a lot of people that are mentors, or to business people around the world, and helping them stay focused on creating success every day and create good habits, which many books have been written about creating good habits, but he's, I think, the one that was really, really focused on, cutting out the noise around you, not listening to bad noise and staying focused on good noise. So, yeah, I think that's something that it's very easy to, at the end of your day, go watch a video or get on Instagram or some other social media, and instead, like, read a book, spend time winding down in the right way to focus your brain. And so he is definitely someone that I would love to spend time with if he was alive. Yeah.
And the last one?
Maybe I'll change from what I said last night.
From last night?
Yeah. I would say that I've started to get to know a little bit more about Darren Hardy, so I wouldn't mind actually spending time with Darren Hardy. And so he's someone who's been very focused on what he's doing. And, some people would say he's maybe a little bit autistic in the way he does things, because he stays so, intentionally focused on something. But at the same time, like, someone like that, like, figures out just about everything about, why and what creates success. And so, yeah, I think that would be something that would be valuable for sure for business. And I'm not in that 100 million range as far as the business goes, so it would be something that would be very beneficial.
All right, last question. If we're to meet 1 year from today, and I got a bottle of that, your Macallan 12 year, what are we celebrating?
If we were celebrating 1 year from today, we would have to be celebrating, I guess, working towards the goal of seeing this country change its direction and being, having some kind of peace in helping the country change its direction.
And I assume when you say this country, you're meaning both.
Both Canada and the U.S.
Because you're dual citizen.
Yes,
Your
exactly,
your mom was American, right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is American.
Yeah. So both countries are headed in a very dark path, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam Vandervalk, how do people find out about Salmon Eye fishing charters and book a trip up here? Because it's so damn worth it.
Well, I guess the best thing to do is go onto the website, which is salmoneye.net, so SALMONEYE.net, and look at all the things we do and decide what is something that, you would like to do with friends or family, and figure out how long you'd like to spend, and then shoot me a message through the contact us form.
And you've got some cabins here on your property that you can rent out for people to stay, and there are obviously lodgings in town as well, but...
Yes, so we do packages that include fishing, accommodation, vacuum packing, and freezing. And then there's restaurants in town, or there's cooking facilities in the cabins, or places that I put you in for the package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam Vandervalk, my man, I love you, brother. Thanks so much for being on the Holy Smokes podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure.